What if the difference between your current situation and your breakthrough lies in your ability to avoid distractions and take bold, calculated risk? In this presentation, I will show you simple steps to create wealth with what you already have. You don't have to look outward. We will continue from where we left off. So far, we have considered 9 keys to moving from debt to wealth, and today we would explore 2 additional keys. But before we dive in, let's do a quick recap. These are the last 3 keys we considered. The seventh key, nothing happens if you do not act. We have seen that nothing actually happens if you do not act. You can have the whole idea in this world, but nothing happens until you act on those ideas. The eighth key, cherish your networks and relationships. We saw that the woman, apart from the jar of oil that she had something else, and that was her friends and neighbors, which could be likened to her networks and relationships. And of course, the ninth, understanding bad and good debts. Imagine that she was in debt, but the prophet told her to go borrow. Imagine, so that means debt upon debt. Need to learn more about this, you can check my last video. So this is the 10th key, and that centers on avoiding distractions. You know what? Ideas often emerge when your mind is quiet and free from distractions. Imagine that 10 persons they want to speak to you, and every one of them they are seeking for your attention. How will you feel? Right? And would you be able to get what all of them are saying at the same time? This is actually what happens when you are distracted. Your ability to focus and extract value actually diminishes. And this is the reason why the woman was told to shut the door behind her. You know what? If you need to generate ideas and create wealth for yourself, you must learn to avoid distractions. And we have seen that this generation probably is the most distracted. We have quite a number of apps, quite a number of technology around us that is seeking for our attention. And we must learn to avoid these distractions. You know what? Interestingly, the same gadgets that serves as distraction could be leveraged for progress and success. So if we want to actually move ourselves from debt to wealth, we must learn to avoid distractions. Because if you are distracted, you won't be able to, create the ideas that will move you from that state which you do not like to that state in which you long for. And that is why successful people they don't joke with their monies, right? They don't joke with that time when they wake up because your brain is fresh. That is the time you can plan your life. That is the time you can create ideas. That is the time you can innovate. So they don't actually joke with their monies. Go and check the features of successful people. They don't joke with the early monies. They are early risers, and they plan, right, and innovate for the future. And that is why it's not a good practice, when you wake up and the first thing you do is to check your notifications, like your absolute notifications. That's not a good practice. You should use that time when your brain is fresh to plan your life, to innovate and ideas. Just as the woman, she shut the door behind herself and the oil continued. She continued to pour the oil into the vessels or into the jars until there was no vessel any longer to take the ideas which we can liken to the oil, right? Just like the saying that says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you need those early hours when you are fresh to focus on ideas and plan your day. One way to actually avoid being distracted early in the morning is to put off your phone or put off your internet connection before you go to bed. So when you wake up, you are not up to checking your notifications. Rather, you are up to plan, to innovate, to commune, to meditate, and this helps you. If you could do this for 30 days, of course, that will become a habit. And don't forget that habit, we form habits, but later the habit forms us. You should learn a behavior, and by the time you get to learn that behavior, the behavior becomes automatic, and that becomes a habit for you, right? So avoiding distractions, very important. I have said that the prophet told the woman, shut the door behind you. And the same way, we need to separate ourselves. We need to shut the door behind every distractions, and we need to find time to innovate and ideate. Don't forget that money flows in the direction of value. So you need to create valuable asset for yourself, and you cannot do that if you don't have time to ideate. All right, creating ideas is work. In fact, it's serious work. It's hard work, right? So you need to actually have time, that you set yourself apart to engage in this creative activity. Step away from the crowd to recharge and strategize. Regularly scheduling time to be alone with yourself is a powerful way to move from debt to wealth. And I implore you to actually act on these. People have retreats, and I would say that retreats are invaluable. By the time you emerge from your retreat, people will notice the difference. They would know that there's something different about you. So you should learn to have retreats. You should learn to walk in silence. You should grind when no one is watching. This is also very important. I wrote a book, and that's From Overwhelmed to Organize, a time management blueprint for busy professionals. And a chapter is dedicated to how you can avoid distractions. This book attained best-selling on Amazon, and if you want to check it out, those are the links on the screen. You can just copy it, or you can just search your Amazon page for the book. The title is From Overwhelmed to Organized, a time management blueprint for busy professionals. Let's continue. Avoiding distractions. Even the great teacher, he dismissed the crowd and even his disciples so that he could have time alone. You should have time alone if actually you want to be successful, and if you want to make great meaning out of your life. Life is too short to waste. The story of Elijah likewise brings this to mind. God told Elijah to go to the mountain. There was a storm, there was even an earthquake, but it was said that God didn't speak to him right in all these storms. It was when a gentle whisper came, that was when instructions, were directed to Elijah. So what we are saying that is this, that you should avoid distractions, because if you are distracted, you won't be able to key into the realm of ideas, and you won't be able to get the solution to your problem. Now let's go to the next key, and that's key number 11. You get results to the extent of your faith and willingness to take calculated risk. Just like we are considering the story of this woman, she was told to borrow jars. Imagine she only borrowed one or two jars. That means that the oil will stop at the second jar, right? We don't know the number of jars that she actually borrowed. All right, if she did one or borrowed maybe 100, that is when the flowing oil will stop. That means that you can get results to the extent of your faith. It might just be that skill of yours that you take for granted. Probably you have a skill in music, for instance, or you have that network or that friendship, right? Or that business skills. Those things that you just take for granted might just be the solution to your problem, right? So now you need faith to step out. You need faith to get more jars. You need faith to get empty jars. You need to think big. Right? If you think small, you won't attain more than that level of your thought. You are what you think. So if you look at the mirror, even if you have not seen what you think you should be, you should tell yourself and act the way you see yourself. Sometimes we have the resources, but we lack the faith to express those resources fully, right? Don't be afraid to act. Probably I should put it in another way and say, don't be afraid to fail, because failure is part of success. In the definition of success is failure. Many times, check people that are successful. Most of them are failed. They are failed many times in their lives. In fact, the more you fail, the better. That means the more the likely. I mean, that means the likelihood for you to attain success. So don't be afraid to fail. You know that the educational system does not encourage failure, right? And that is why many people are afraid to try something outside school, because the school does not encourage, failure. And you must understand that failure is part of the winning game, right? Failure is part of the definition of success. So don't be afraid to fail, and don't be afraid to act, right? So that's it. Now, what would you do if you were told that there will be rain? Probably, let's assume that there's no rain for a year, and you were told that there will be rain in the next 2 months, and it will only rain for 3 days. What would you do, right? Would you get a bucket? Would you get a drum, a reservoir, or would you build a dam? Think about that. We are talking about you get results to the extent of your faith and the willingness to take calculated risk. So this is also important. We are often afraid to take steps and actions we have never taken before. And the truth is that if you want a different result, then you have to do something different from what you have been doing before, right? So if you need to get a different result, you need to do something differently. And that is why it said that it's not about achieving what your goals, but who you become in the journey of achieving that goal. It's better to over prepare than to under prepare for abundance. All right, that's it for today. Now, this is one of my books, Find Your Work, Unlocking Your Path to Impact, Fulfillment, and Worthy Compensation. You can just scan the QR code that will take you to the page where you can get the book. Thank you for joining me once again today. Feel free to subscribe to this channel. I will see you some other time.